If you've got an ulcer, you want to pay attention right here and right now. So, I'm going to talk today about the spiritual meaning of ulcers. They are definitely trying to tell you something about what is off in your mind, body, and life. So, let me tell you a little story, story time with Tara here. So, I developed ulcers when I was about, I think, 25 years old. So, I, at that point in time, was engaged to someone that I knew was not the person that I really should marry. We just had a lot of things. He was a yeller. I was not a yeller. That, was one of the issues. And I was working in an environment at the time that was extremely, extremely stressful. I was working with a few people that really did not in any way, shape, or form respect or even acknowledge any kind of boundaries. And I was being put in a lot of positions where I was being overworked for little to no pay. And it was very, very overwhelming. It was very, very stressful altogether. And I felt like I couldn't speak up at that moment in time. And all of a sudden, I was actually supposed to go out on a hike one like Sunday morning, and I couldn't get out of bed because my stomach hurt so badly. Ended up going off to the doctor, and he quickly told me that I had two ulcers in my stomach. And he proceeded to check and see if it was like there's bacteria that can cause the ulcer. And it wasn't that. And finally, that's actually when I went off and did yoga because I intuitively knew I was trying not to pay attention to it, which is usually how our bodies start to try to talk to us because we're trying to ignore it. I intuitively knew that it was because of all these things going on around me, right? And I realized that in my case, what I was doing was rather than speaking up and saying the things I needed to say, like, hey, I can't marry you, or hey, I am worth more than you guys just constantly putting me in these really bad positions all the time and feeling that I had the right to stand up for myself, which I did not feel on any possible level at that point in time for a lot of different reasons. Instead of speaking up for my truth and for protecting myself, I wasn't doing that. And so I was literally eating away at myself instead of speaking up. So let's break that down a little bit more as to what exactly is going on. So whenever we're looking at our stomachs are certainly how we actually break things down and take in nourishment. We start sort of the process of taking in nourishment resides in the stomach, right? The other thing the stomach is what I call station three. Some people call it the solar plexus. And what it basically is that it is the area where who we are and our ability and right to protect ourselves resides. Okay. So when we start to think about that, we're again, it's where we start to take in nourishment and we start to have that sense of like identity and being able to take care of ourselves. It also is where we feel either we have the right to protect ourselves or we don't have the right to protect ourselves. A lot of that is messaging from childhood. And so if we think about what an ulcer is, then the ulcer is actually acid in there, actually eating away at the lining of the stomach, sort of the protective lining in some ways of the stomach. We're actually eating holes into that. So we put that completely together. What is happening is that there's something in your gut that you need to deal with that is not protective, not good for you, that is maybe something against your identity, that is making you feel like you don't have the right to actually nourish who you truly are as a person. And instead of being able to feel that you can actually express that or stop what's going on with that, you feel very stuck in that situation. And instead of actually doing any of that, you're actually eating away at yourself. You're breaking down your own self from the inside out instead of speaking up. Okay. So that is the basic thing. When you see ulcers, that's what's going on. I would encourage you, if you're dealing with ulcers, to take a moment and take a look at what is that in your life? What do you need to speak up about? What's going on there? And really take a moment to like write that down or journal about that. And then at that point, really to think about how can I make better decisions or how can I speak up? How can I eliminate some of these things or make massive changes so that I am supported and nourished? So some of the questions I would want you to take a look at if you're working with me personally are things like how do I feel about my right to have full nourishment? And nourishment doesn't mean just food. It means emotional, it means spiritual, it means mental, it means physical. So how do I feel about my right to fully take things in? And another question is, what in my life is causing me to feel like I would rather eat away at myself than maybe in my case, like I didn't want to really hurt at that point my fiance, then ex-fiance, even though it was hurting me, right? And that's another thing you want to look at with ulcers. Like, where are you not wanting to hurt another people, but in so doing, you're actually hurting yourself. You're breaking yourself down, right? So those are the questions I would want you to take a look at, and that is the spiritual meaning of ulcers. I would love to hear any comments. Please, if this is something that's helpful or you know somebody with ulcers that this could be useful for them, please do like, subscribe, and share. If you have anything going on from a physical standpoint you'd like me to take a look at and translate for you, please put that in the comments as well. And while you're at it, definitely, if you'd like to learn more about how to translate the message of any pain or disease for yourself, then definitely make sure to look at my body language program where you can do just that with a ton of support, some practices, and learn how to create your own step-by-step healing plan that is bespoke for you, totally individualized to you, and works just in the ways you need it.